I am pleased to have with me Shurnelle. Here you go, Shurnelle. Can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, so hi everyone, whatever time you're watching this. My name is Shurnelle Spencer. I was born in Dominica. I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago, and I am a recording Christian artist.
Okay, thank you. Our conversation tonight is going to be centered around music, artistic work in the field of music. So, at what point did you realize that it was music for you? At what point that you, in your development, that you realized that music was something you should be sought after?
I think in my earliest memories, my mom actually, her family is very creative. So before I even recognized it was a part of my blood. I remember it initially started off as things that were artistic. So any papers my dad had lying around, when he came home from work, he would see drawings scribbled all over his important papers. And he literally banned me from his home office because I destroyed a lot of his really important papers at that point in time. And he was a VP. So, it's like, you just say, hey, Shurnelle! I'm like,
So it started as young as childhood.
Yeah, it started off as just all artistic things. So it was initially drawing. I did a lot of drawing. I drew on everything, everywhere. And then as I entered primary school, it was poetry. Now, we would always sing every morning for morning worship. We would sing and harmonize, but I never really, even though I knew I loved singing and we would always sing all the time. My dad would play the guitar and my brother, my mom and I would harmonize alto, soprano, tenor. I don't even know how I picked that up. I guess it's just a part of, our culture as Seventh-day Adventists. But by the time I actually got into school, I was writing just like poetry initially and doing some poetry and art. And I saw myself as a really solid alto. So from in the little kids choir, because I went to a Seventh-day Adventist school as well. So, they train you into everything. Once they recognize you have an ability, you in like 10 different things.
Nice.
So from the time I got into the children's choir, the teachers would always be like, you have a strong alto. So I would always kind of be one of the leaders for the alto section. And I saw myself as a strong supporting singer. However, when I was home now, I would be singing the lead and like annoying everybody. So as I started to get into school and sing more, one of my teachers, who I think was very influential in nurturing, she had us make like a booklet full of folk songs, Disney songs, like just different types of songs. And I would just be like, climb every mountain outside singing through my window and annoying the living daylight out of my family members.
All right. So would you say that you had a good nurturing background, like your school, your community, and your family? Did they nurture that creative aspect out of you, or was it something that was accepted, or you had to fight your way in making a space for yourself in creating your music and stuff like that?
I would absolutely say I was extremely privileged to be able to grow up in a university, because I grew up in the University of the Southern Caribbean back then, CUC. So we lived like right opposite the music room. So, I mean, music was just always everywhere around me. I was in a lot of different groups and, little children's groups, quartets, this, that, the other. So I definitely nurture Nature, because my family is very artistic. My mom's side of the family is extremely artistic, but the nurturing, I think the advancement of how I perceive music, how I write music now, how things come together, I really do have to say it had to do with nurturing.
All right. So you right now, it appears to me that you organize or you produce your own songs. Is that right?
Well, you could say executive produce, but I write my own music. I usually, because my fault again, I did not, really sharpen my axe when it comes to instruments.
Mm-hmm.
I played viola up until grade 4. I played piano for a few years, but I've never been the instrumental type person. I learned dancing. So I know how, of course, how, notes and chords and everything sounds. So what I would usually do is, and actually one of my person who wrote a good bit of this stuff that will, I guess, kind of be on the EP that I'm working on, who I worked with is actually from St. Lucia. So shout out to him. What I would usually do is I would record. So if I want to hear a certain thing, I'll be like, here for the bass line, do, 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 do. I would like literally sing out some of the parts that I'm hearing and then collaborate with the instrumentalist or my MD to create songs that I'm hearing in my head. So in that regard, yes.
All right. We had a little, it was sticking a little bit. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yeah, I am.
All right, great. So to me, all right, music is something that's it's very powerful. It's very interesting, and it has two fundamental characteristics that we could say that music is both universal and is both transcendental. What that means fundamentally is that it goes beyond all human understanding, because when you hear a really nice song or when you hear a really nice tune, there's something that taps into you. And I would think that's basically that would be called the religious experience. So it's like logically you cannot put your hand as to why this is making me feel the way it's making me feel. Like it has a transcending experience, and then it's universal. I haven't found anybody that would say to me that they don't like music, they don't like singing, they don't like songs, they don't enjoy those things. So, what do you enjoy most as an artist? Since you write and you sing, do you sing other popular songs or the creative process? Do you enjoy the creative process more?
I definitely enjoy creating, but I think that would be for most artists. Even you would be in the artistic realm as a writer. When like when you write your own work and you work on your stuff, you enjoy it and you're really excited about it. But the real joy comes like when you share and then you get a reaction from people when they could connect with your book, with your words, when they could, feel inspired and feel hopeful and feel encouraged. I think the greatest joy I get is when I'm able to connect the words and the heart of the music with the people who are listening. So when I see testimonies and I see just people sharing how much they were inspired and how much they were encouraged, and sharing how, they may not have understood it from my perspective, but because it's a shared experience, they were able to relate it to their life. I think that impacts me the most, and that encourages me even in the hardest of times to keep going.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, the shared experience. That's an interesting thought that you expressed. The fact that you can experience something and you can go through the creative process, put it into words, create it, and then somebody else can connect with that shared experience. And what I'm thinking is that, where do you go as an individual mentally? Where do you go to connect with that shared experience, to go into the unknown? We could look at it we could conceptualize it that way. Go into the unknown, because there are certain things that happen to us that we do not really understand what we are going through. Sometimes the feeling is there, but we cannot verbalize it. We cannot put words to what is going on. And so that time you see persons react in ways that you might not even understand. As an artist, the procedure or the process for art is like, you go into the unknown. You go into what you don't know. You come back with something that you make clear, that you can understand, that you can verbalize, that you can put in a way that other persons can understand it. And then you go out and share with those persons. And you inspire persons, because inspiration comes from within. When you inspire somebody, you have them to look within themselves and find the words, or find something to say about themselves that they couldn't say before. And that's why art and the creative process is such a wonderful field to explore. So I'm asking, when you are creating your pieces, when you are writing your songs, just that the writing process or the creating process of putting words to paper, where does Shurnelle go? Who is she in that point? What is she doing in that point, in that specific time?
Okay, so different songs based on the context comes in different ways. So as I believe, as a Christian artist, I should be able to like sing and speak on any topic and give that vantage point of Christ. When I'm doing stuff that is more spiritual type songs, more sacred songs that I would say is definitely for worship, like prayerful. One song in particular that I know a lot of people who have heard it, they are looking forward to its release. I actually went into one of Ellen G. White books, and I did some research on her vision of heaven. And I basically stayed up that night. It was extremely prayerful. So I was in that particular space because I wanted to paint the picture of what it would be like when we get to heaven. The joy of it. And when I was finished with the song, I honestly couldn't even believe I wrote it. I have a lot of moments like that because I know that God is penning, writing down stuff. And sometimes I'm like, gosh, that came out from my brain? No way.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I like the fact that you articulate and you verbalize that. That's exactly right. You take yourself somewhere that's beyond your own human understanding. You take yourself out there and you bring something back and you wander into yourself, and that's partly the story of Arthur and the Holy Grail. You enter the forest at the deepest part that seems dark to you, and when you come out, when you get the grail, when you come out, when you get that gift, when you get that treasure, you'll be like, oh my God, that's me. I did that, and I had a lot of episodes like that right in my book. I'm like, whoa, that's whoa. Like up to now. Like up to now, when I read over the book now, I'm like, whoa, is that really my book? Really? Is that me? Like, no. And that's the creative process, and I really find that's something nice to experience. I really find this very
so also add, as we both share a faith and have that relationship with God. I don't know how it is for persons outside. I know some people, their creative process outside includes like getting really high, like some creative space to exist in. But I think the deepest place to exist in is when you are fully aware of your environment, but you immerse yourself so deeply in God in your process that he transcends you and literally gives you that high that is on a next level. Because I remember I had a play to write a song for. Of course, the play didn't come out because COVID came and just shut everything down. But they were waiting on me to give the song up. And I really procrastinated on it a bit. But then I had I'm always doing 10 things at the same time. So that could really get in the way of like accomplishing certain other things. So I didn't prioritize it. And coming down to the deadline, they were like, hey, Shurnelle, we really, really extended this deadline for you. But if you can't, send us a song by the weekend, we would have to go on the project without you. And they were like, we really want you in. So I'm like, yes, I have started. So sometimes in the creative process, sometimes I get a hook. A lot of my songs, I get the hook or I get the melody. I will literally be, just like reflecting, doing something. I could be washing wares. I've gotten a few songs washing wares. I'm washing wares, and as I'm singing, I will hear a hook, and I'll just be like, coming back to you. Like, I need to record that. I'll run, grab my phone, record it. My phone is full of recordings. And then I'll be like, I need to get back to that song. So what I initially heard for that song was the bass line and then back to you. I had it there for months. That's our next song. So the same thing with the song for the health. I know I kept hearing hope. Here is hope in my head. And I was just like, I don't know. Okay. All right. Well, I'll finish these things and then I'll get it. The Friday before, the Friday that it is due, I sit down in school because I teach art. I sit down in school and I pray. I'm like, Jesus, I know I procrastinated on this, but I really believe mental health is like one of the big things that I always want to talk about, and I'm going to be sharing more on with my own journey in the future. So I was like, I really want to write something on this. God, please help me. I tuned in. I pulled up some scripture. I sat down. When I was finished, I ran across to my friend who's a keyboardist, Daryl, and as we began, both of us watching each other, and he is shocked. I'm shocked. We cannot even believe what this song is. This song literally, and everybody I've played it for said that they felt like this song goes to your darkest place and like it meets you there and then it pulls you out. And that is exactly, God knows my heart, what I wanted. I wanted it to initially feel like it's not starting bright. It's meeting you where you are, because that's what God is. And the whole concept of this song is, I'm not even saying God in the beginning. I'm saying here is hope. But at the end of this song, it says that God is hope. So I really wanted it to be something that you don't have to believe in him, but by the time you reach to the end of this song, you want to know who God is, because it just keeps lifting you each verse, each chorus. It keeps revealing to you this light that could bring hope. So yeah.
Yeah, and while you're speaking, what's coming to my mind is that going through the process, one of the questions I ask myself, is it rational thinking? Are you thinking rationally, or are you tapping into another type of, are you tapping into more of an imaginative process? Do you think that the creative process have to do with the direct? Because there are two types of thinking. I read this book called The Analytical Psychology by Carl Jung, and he spoke about two different types of thinking. There is the logical or direct thinking, and you have the fantasy and imaginative thinking. So the logical thinking is the thinking that deals with the day-to-day process, that deals with the physical, that deals with matter itself, that deals with what's happening right now, the voice in your head, the voice that you speak, the speaker, the organizer, what's happening up there. But the imaginative thinking, it was, and that's what they call the fantasy or imaginative thinking. It's what comes to your awareness without your permission. You would say fundamentally.
Yeah.
It comes to you. It just comes. It's like it just flashes on a screen. Just flashes on you. It just flashes on you. And sometimes you would find that you can engage in that conversation. It's almost like you can ask a question genuinely, directly with faith that you will get an answer, and the answer flashing across your screen. Now, it takes a level of awareness. It takes a level of awareness to hear the answer to the question you ask, or to what you have been asking, or what you have been waiting for. But sometimes you can ask it and you don't have, well, you are not waiting for an answer. And I think that's what the fundamental aspect of faith is. You ask a question, but then you turn your back and go, and you're not waiting for the response. But if you ask a question, or if you say, like you were saying, like you want to write that song, you have a deep feeling in your heart as to what you want the song to make other persons feel, where you want it to take them. And then that flashed to your awareness, like that is what's going to have that experience, or what's going to cause that experience in other individuals. And you were aware of it. Like you said, you were washing dishes and you were looking for the answer, you're waiting for the answer, and bam, the answer came. I think that's one of the critical points in the creative process. It's like going into that dark place, like you said, going into the dark place, the place of chaos, the place where nothing is organized, and you go in there and you create some form of order. And when you create that order, you bring that back out, and then you go out and you serve it to other individuals. Because the creative process is it is what drives humanity forward. And we cannot take that away from ourselves. No matter what we say with our mouth, we cannot disconnect that there is a higher part of human consciousness that is not logical. It is illogical.
Yeah.
It is irrational, and we cannot use the rational faculties to try and define it. If you understand what I'm saying, because it's something that is beyond you, and like you said, some persons try to tap into it using different substances and different ways to tap into it, but going into it with a clean heart, from my experience, from my personal experience, going into it with a clean heart it's more of a genuine connection. It's something that you did on your free will. You were not pressed. Because sometimes you press to go down there based on other substances. And when you go down there in other substances, sometimes what you come out with is a bit diluted. That's not what the message was. The message, it was tainted. It was tainted with something. I don't want to put any words to it, but then it was tainted, and you came out with that's not what you had to come out with initially.
And that's it. That's the next thing. I think when you don't have a relationship with God, I always tell, my friends who know some of the things that I've experienced, I say, like, how are you still holding on after some of these things? I said, having a relationship with God, having that foundation that was laid rightfully so by my parents, has cushioned the impact. And I think we often take the cushion of the impact for granted, because whereas some other people may face certain things or go into a certain depth, because going creatively, as a creative, there's like, we can get really emotional and we could get really sucked into whatever those emotions are, because we embrace it to create, to really bring to life.
Mm-hmm.
And going into a dark space without protection from God, and as you said, without that purity, many people are not able to come out of it. So as you said, the same thing, they go in and their intention is to, do something else. But as they get down in there without that protection and that covering, the outcome of their product turns out to be much darker and not what sometimes they even expected. And I really thank God for covering, because even in the moments where I wasn't fully connected, and I did not do my ritual process in terms of, like, let's say, prayer and study and then write, whatever the case is, he still would have led me to create things that I really could not even take the glory for. I still have to say, like, it was God, because of just how it came together. and then the feelings that people felt when they heard it. So I'm really excited after this process because I'm getting back into the process of completing my album by the grace of God.
Congratulations.
And thank you. Finally, I am fed up of having all these songs and not putting them out, so I'm just focusing in. But you know, God would have definitely led me to see all the circumstances, everything that you would have gone through. I know that it may not sound the way people envision it to be, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is really to meet people with mental strain wherever they are. And I know I'm being guided by him because what is not supposed to be is not, it's not happening, and what is to be is happening. So
let's hook on that, like the purpose, and take into you. I think you flowing right into the next question, and that was then beautifully the purpose of your creation. Do you believe that the creative process, or is it right to say the creative process must have an aim, like an end goal in mind? Do you think that it must be purposeful? It must be deliberate and purposeful. Like if you're going to create something, you must have that end goal. Like one of the books that I read, and I always like to reference that book. That's the greatest book I've read all time. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
yeah.
And one of the principles that really stuck with me as a male, I don't know if that's part of my personality and that's who I am. Like I need to know that there is an end goal. I need to know what I am working towards, and that helps the creative process more. So I'm asking, is it a principle that you need to know what you are working towards so that you know where you're moving from and you know where you're going, so that the creative process has a pattern. You know what you're trying to find out. You know the answer. You know the question you want to ask, and you have generated a feeling as to what that answer would feel like when it come out in a more orderly fashion, in more logical fashion.
Yeah. I definitely believe that you have to be purposeful and you have to be intentional. I sometimes I really wonder how people do stuff without like a plan or a purpose. It baffles me actually, because I'm just like, so what is directing you? And then also when things fall apart, because I really believe purpose and intention is what guides you. Even if roadblocks or stones are in your way, because you would have set that mark, you can keep pressing forward. And even in our spiritual life, the same thing as, they say, press towards the mark. Like you literally have to set that mark. That mark has to be in front of you, and you have to keep going and keep your eyes on it. So I know that there are people who are much more gifted than I am. There are people who have better vocals, they're more technical, they have more style, flair, whatever it may be. But because they lack purpose, they aren't able to accomplish the stuff I'm accomplishing. And it has nothing to just do with talent or ability or privilege. It really has to do with purpose and intention. And I think that is such an important thing to talk about, because so many people are result-oriented in our time. And they forget that the process, when approached with intention and with purpose, is what leads to success. And we see the end product. So I know a lot of people would have seen, oh, a book is done. Wow, okay, he's really out there. But they have no idea your years of studies, reading. When I hear you in different interviews, you always talk about different things with psychology, about the mind. So you didn't just wake up one morning and just put that together. It's people don't understand, people really think like creatives, oh, you're just making up things every day. And they don't understand it's a literal process. Like there were years of study that you've committed yourself to understanding, so that when you write your book about purpose, you are really coming from a very solid place you want to make sure certain things scientifically are correct, this and that. And it's time. It's time and it's energy. And to create what you created had to have purpose and intention so that it can be done and executed in the right way. But this particular time, people see the outcomes more because of social media. They see, the final hurrahs. So they see the book and then they see you doing interviews and tours and they're like, he think he reached out here. And you're like, what? I've been spending years working on this thing, like with sleepless, like, and they don't know because we have gotten caught up, society, wider society has gotten caught up in the end product instead of the intention of the process and having that purpose being the end product instead. So that's just what I feel.
Yeah, that's exactly. When I'm a teacher at a primary school, and when I was writing the book, it took me like close to 3 years to write the book. That takes 30 in one. I bought a lot of books because I was trying to find something about myself. I was in a place that I was trying to understand something about me directly, and then I realized that what you are trying to find out about yourself is not personalized. It's archetypical. It is happening right there in your society, so you are not the only one. And then I read a lot. I read a lot of books. And when I was going through the writing process, there was a friend of mine at work. His name is McCloud Smith. He was actually the music teacher at the time, and the principal was saying like, Mr. Maverick's eyes is always red, he's always tired and whatever. And because he was a close friend of mine and I was telling him my plans and what I was doing, he could have stood up and say, no, he's writing a book. He's always up at night writing a book. So here I was writing the book, coming from work at 4, going out to work out, train, whatever. And from 8 to 9, from 8 to 12, I would read, write, go and take a 1 hour rest, wake up, and from 2 until 7, I would be writing. I'll just be writing. And there's something, and after I hit that state, there's a state called the flow state where you are not aware of your surroundings, you are not aware of your body, you are not aware of anything. You are just directly inside of creating. You're in the flow state. You're just flowing. You are not aware that you're hungry. You are not aware that you're tired. You are not aware of any of those things. You are just flowing. You are just immersed inside of what. It's like you hit a vein. It's like you hit a vein and everything just flowing right out. Just flowing out and just writing. And when you go back to edit, you're like, wow, that's a lot that was said. Because one of the things that I listened to, I read a lot of Miles Monroe, and I listened to a lot of Miles Monroe as well. And there's something that he said that there's your subconscious mind, right? And when you put things, you need to put things inside of your mind so that it will give back to you. And it was based on scripture that said, put your mind on things that are good, things that are righteous, things that are right, things that are, and out of the abundance of the mind, so will the individual speak. So when you put things down inside, you have to put things down inside of your mind so that your mind now can concoct it and join it and synthesize it and create something new out. But you couldn't create something if you don't have if you don't have a foundation. You cannot make bricks without cement. No, you need cement to make bricks.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why, as you said, the same process. All of that is a lot of work. Sometimes creatives are misunderstood as well. And just like you said, your principal just observed that you seem tired or whatever the case is. But that is the road to getting a certain type of outcome. Sadly, that is the road, sacrifice. And just today, I heard creative, my brother's playing something that the guy was saying, he listened to all the different types of artists in his genre. He studied how they approach their stuff, how they flowed. And then he said he got a dictionary. He started to learn words in the dictionary. So for people, to give him the accolade of being a lyricist, he put in a lot of work to get to that point where people could hear him flowing like that. And that's the reality. A lot of the great writers, lyricists, etc., they put in a lot of work into just researching and looking at human behavior, reading. And once again, people really don't know the process. People don't know the process. They enjoy the outcome, because after all of that is said and done, especially for like me as an artist, so you put in all that research, like you go through, you play with different melody lines, like, okay, no, that doesn't fit there. If I want to, bring out this type of emotion, I should probably do a falsetto there to kind of, switch it. And you are in your head creative. But then this song comes out and it's just 3 minutes, right? So everybody's just like, it's not even a book. At least with a book, people can be like, wow, okay, 500 pages, he really went in. But with us, it's just like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and they're like, so when is the next one? That's all it. You're like, that's all I did. What? Do you know, like, this took nights, this took weeks to complete. I have songs that I was talking to one of my producers the other day, and he was just like, last time you touched the song was last year. And I was just like, interesting, because it's really a process, like I know I would have to be in the right frame of mind. I felt a bit stressed with the pandemic and everything, and I am a more outside type body. I'm a little bit more sociable. I do enjoy being,
extroverted, very extroverted.
I wouldn't say very extroverted. I can't remember the word for the mixture. However, when I'm inside, like how I was telling you about my new space, that I basically renovated and we flipped the entire space from scratch. I love interior design. When I'm in here like, I don't need to hear from anybody. My process creatively, I work on my own pretty well. It's something I'm definitely working on. I work on my own. So even the musicians and the people around me, they have gotten accustomed to me mostly conceptualizing most of the stuff on my own and then bringing it to them. And you have pluses and downsides with that. But when it's not the creative process, I am outside. I'm a sociable person. So it's really like a switch up when it comes to creative things and stuff. My brother would say I have the full blueprint in my head and nobody else is fully aware of what it is. And then, well, in the back here, you can see I have like journals and a lot of writing stuff because I like to document and kind of put down the steps, put down a possible layout of how I would like things to go God's will. So I'm that person, and in that space, nobody would know about these things unless I see it. But then outside of that, I'm like, hey, let's go do something.
Yeah,
as soon as I'm like, okay, I'm out. Let's talk later.
Yeah, but like you were saying, I mean, as human beings, we can conceptualize ourselves as potential, right? We are just energy, just dormant energy. We are not moving, right? We are potential energy and potential energy, and that's not a wrong conceptualization. So, not by any stretch of the imagination that we can think that we are not potential energy. So based on your experience, what caused you to move from potential to consistent action when you're creating? What moved you forward? What moved you from being stagnant in one area and to have yourself to have incremental progress that you enjoy so much that you continue to enjoy it until you get yourself to where you are right now?
Okay. I would say from a small age, I was extremely determined. So My parents never really had to like tell me, go do this or get your homework done, or like, I've just always, since I know myself, and I recognize I got that from my dad later on, because he had like a big book of dreams, visions, different things that he wanted to accomplish. And right up until before he died, he was on the last lap of his PhD. And then the school actually, gave him it honorary because he was working so hard to get to that stage. He always wanted to, that was like one of his last set of goals, doing his PhD. And he was literally like 2 subjects away from getting it before, he really couldn't go to school anymore. So since small, as I'm talking to you here, I literally see it clear how I became that way. He would sit down with my brother and he would ask us like, what are some of the things you want to do in life? And then he would create a plan. So, I mean, granted, I initially thought I was going to be a cardiologist, but, but like, he also knew I loved music and art stuff. And I know if he was alive, he would have supported 100% because all his students said he always spoke about how I was always singing. So nobody was really ever surprised that this was the direction. But he would sit down and he would literally be like, okay, so next 3 years, you'll be at this level. You'll have to take these subjects to do that, this, that. So that is how my brother and I grew up, where no matter how big the dream was, Daddy would be like, what is it? Once you share it, he's like, let's make a plan. So in my mind, I only know how to dream big. My friends always tell me, they say, Shurnelle, you either go big or you don't, like at all. And that's my literally motto, my motto. I either shoot for what I have, or I just wait until I know I can just jump, I can go for big. And going for big doesn't mean that it doesn't have a process, because of course, as an artist, I'm coming up so step by step, but I don't budge on certain things quality-wise and certain other stuff because of that particular thing that my dad taught us about sticking to, your goal, your process.
And what was it? What job did he do? What was his work?
So he was a pastor, but when he got called to work at USC, he went from a dean, and this is once again because of his goals. So he started off as a dean, and then they loved his work ethic and how he approached stuff and the kind of visions he had for student development. And then within 2 years, he was the vice president of student development, which he remained.
Sorry for interjecting, but he knows exactly what he is doing. He was no pushover, because I'm trying to do and that's a principle. That's not something that's within me. I understood it, and he understood it as well. And I'm doing a research right now. I'm putting a research together, and the question I'm asking in the research is there a correlation between family structure and cognitive development? And my premise is that if there is structure, like he's doing, a structure is creating a plan. The structure, that's how I'll define structure. Knowing what you're doing next, knowing what the plan is. So, and Piaget said this properly. Piaget is he's a development, the cognitive theorist. He's a cognitive development theorist, and we use him a lot. We use his model a lot in our education system. When you give a child an exam in grade 4 and grade 3, that's based on Piaget's theory of cognitive development. So what he's saying, that the cognitive development of the child is based on the structure. Is based on structure. If the home is structured, because that's what school is partly. People think school is going and learn maths and all those things. No, you have a structure. You go out for break at that time, you reach at school at that time, you go out for lunch at that time, you have periods in between that time. And between that time, we give you work to do so that will help boost the cognitive development. Because cognitive development is based on structure. And if the home doesn't have structure, that's why some of the children in the school, it's difficult for the school process to to pull them out of that lack of structure from the home and from the environment. So what I'm trying to find is a correlation between the two of them. And when you say he was always doing a plan and he was making you work towards a plan, that's a lot of order. And that's what that's what his function. And like you said, I think he understood very well what he was doing, because like you said, he's a pastor. He understands what order is. Like, order is basically, there is chaos and there is order. We live in a binary existence. There is chaos and there is order. One is godly and one is ungodly. Because I don't think we specify which one that's ungodly. We live in an ordered existence. Is ordered. Everything is ordered. The plants, going down to the level of it's reasoning inductively, going down to the level of the earthworms and the bees and all those things. Those things are ordered for plants to make food, and plants to give us food. Our diet as human beings is 70% plant-based. And if the earthworms die out, the plants die out, because the earthworms create nitrates break down the nitrogen, and the nitrogen create nitrates, and the plants use the nitrate for photosynthesis. And the bees, they go into the plants, the flowers attract the bees, so that the bees can come and take the nectar, so that they can cause pollination, so that they could create fruit. Our whole universe is ordered. So we, as our life, we need order in our life for us to thrive and grow cognitively, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And too much chaos. And that's what happens when we don't have order. We fall into chaos. We fall into the unknown. We don't specify our aims because we are afraid to fail. And if we are not specifying our aims, we are not moving towards something. So we are always regressing. And that's what Carl Jung called the general neurosis. And that's what Viktor Frankl called the existential crisis. If you're in existential crisis and the existential tirade, if you're in too much chaos, you suffer with anxiety, you suffer with depression, you suffer with aggression, you suffer with addiction, because you naturally, as a human being, you're supposed to grow. And if you are not growing, you are not stagnant. There's no stasis in existence. You regress. And our natural inclination is to grow. So if I'm regressing, I'm suffering, and my suffering is meaningless. So I have to give meaning to my suffering. I have to work towards something. And that's foundation. That's the foundation aspect of creating and moving forward from one stage to the next.
And a lot of people are unaware of why their life things aren't falling in place. A lot of people are unaware. And as I said, I see it around me all the time. I've gotten comments like, but Shurnelle is not even like, the best in our SDA circle. Why is she always getting called, or why this and that? And I really recognize from that. I said, the same thing occurred to my dad as well. It's not that he was at the top of his class when he graduated, but he had a certain ethic and principles that he kept to in how he would approach things, his consistency, his genuinity. Like he was so consistent with that, because he came from literally nothing. It had a period of time my dad was living on the streets before he actually married my mom. Like, he was dirt poor. His family kicked him out when he became a Christian. He really suffered. But because he read so much, because in the house we were in prior, when he was alive, as I said, he had his home office. That was also the library. And we have, up to this day, in the back by my grandmother, we have in an entire room, just boxes of books. He was a collector, and then he literally stamped them with his name and put the date. And as we were going through them and sitting down, we were like, wow, he really did the most. He was so meticulous in collecting these books. And my brother was just like, Shun, this is a fortune here of knowledge, books on all sorts of stuff, psychology, on relationships, on human interaction, just a wide spiritual things. He have all the commentaries, all of this. He really took his time and he invested in himself mentally, and made sure that he was in a position where he kept growing. because, you know, I hear stories from some of his peers, you know, who are now big pastors and etc. And they're like, you know, when your dad was back in school, he couldn't pronounce words properly. And I just chuckle because the legacy he left behind, it really goes to show for anybody who is tuning in, like, don't ever think your circumstances limit you from growing. Growing is a thing that you have to take upon yourself. And that's why when people jump to conclusions, when they see the outcome of somebody's success and they go like, so big shot now or this or that, I just go like, wow, you really don't understand how this thing works. You can see this level of success in your life if you put the work in, if you put the time, the effort, if you spend time meditating, you think, you know, you disconnect, you think deeper, it has a lot of different things in the process to get to this point where you are on a different level of awareness, because I really do see it around me. Sometimes I'm like, I want nobody else seeing this, and it's just me and just a few other people, just a few, like a sprinkle, be like watching each other, like, oh, you see it too, right? You know, it's really awkward because, as I said, I'm a very sociable person, but over the years, I recognize I take it in doses, because when it comes to the creative process, I'm thinking deeper on stuff. I recognize most people aren't there. They're not there. But they will jump to conclusions and they will judge you. And it's caused me to be like, I now understand why my dad had this big booklet with his visions, his ideas, this and that. And it's only after he died, the recent vice president for that department, he found the booklet and he was shocked. Like, he was like, you know, your dad was like years ahead of his time in terms of like programs and thinking about stuff. And I'm like, yeah, because he took the time. Oh. He was pro planning. When I sit down here, this book that I have here, you know, I literally took my time. I went on Canva. I created from the poster of my future book to the possible look of my future album. And this book is about that, making a plan. I have all the different steps, all the different things that I would like to do. And I've now started to like put visuals to it. That when I open it, the same thing like what my dad did, I have it here documented, like this was the process. And as I see God work and do his thing, I'll put the date when it was completed, you know, when it was completed. And I know, like, hey, Jesus, I'm not just waking up on a whim. This is intentional. So I will get results. Even if you don't believe in Jesus, there are so many people who are atheists or just whatever other stuff that they believe in. But they take the principle, and you hear people talking about manifestation. I'm like, guys,
that's something to talk about. That's something to talk about.
You know,
that's what I'm saying. That's why I believe in existential psychology, and what that says fundamentally is that it doesn't matter what you say with your mouth. The way you behave says a lot more, because somebody can just say, oh, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. But come on, think about it. You're an atheist, you don't believe in God. But much of what you're doing shows that the fact that you can feel somebody else's pain, the fact that you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes, the fact that you can just will yourself to move towards an aim. All these things, when you say you don't, what do you mean? You have to now specify, what do you mean when you say believe, and what do you mean when you say God? Because you are acting out the same thing that the belief in God is asking you to act out, but you're just saying with your mouth you don't believe in God. So persons who act that way, and persons who believe, then I would say, okay, if you're in a relationship with your husband or your wife, and let's say you're in a relationship with your husband, and then the husband is never doing anything to show that he loves you. He never spends time, and then he's just saying to you, he loves you. Will you believe that? Like, will you believe that? But he's not showing, he's not doing the things, or he's actually treating you in a negative way. But then he's saying that he loves you. Will you believe what he say? And then not watch his actions? I think actions are way more, they are way more evidence in what they portray than what individuals say.
And we have to also know that there is a lot, just as human beings, just like how, there's a lot of things happening around us that we are not exposed to. The same thing with the creative process, and I'm looking at creators. There is a lot behind the scenes, because you said it took you 3 years of research and studies. And as you're sitting down here and you're calling the different philosophers for psychology, I know you studied it, because even I, as a psych student, I was in school 4 years ago, but I graduated, I have my first degree in psych. And I'm like, for real? Yeah. As you're talking, I'm like, that theory, yes, I remember that. Like, because even though I did psychology, to be honest, I recognize how it affected my creative approach. And I'm really, really glad I did it. Because, some people go like, well, Sean, why you even waste your time on the psychology? You could have done business, so that you could, maximize business side of stuff. And I'm like, no, I can always do certification and courses now. But the years of psychology has really allowed me to see foot in the door moments, to see and I was, the other day I was telling a friend about it. A situation came up and I told her, I said, that person understands the term of a foot in the door. I said, I literally see them making the move. I see them making the move. And she was like, nah, it's not like that. I'm like, the person saw that crack and they are pushing their way through. And had I not had that background in psychology to understand, the hierarchy of needs and different stuff, it really does help me approach music and how to, what? Wow. I never gave it the credit, but that is probably one of the reasons why a lot of my stuff is geared to mental health and holistic wellness. Because I always write from that kind of psychological, I want to get into your mind and then bring you into a space for Jesus and healing. Every time I write, I'm going for your heart and your mind. I want it to be that if you are in that particular place, you just know that this song was for you. And I've literally seen it happen. Because the same song I told you about, I had my background girls sing it, and they were like, Shurnelle, this song kind of, it was like, it's nice, but it have a kind of dark, a kind of low kind of slave. They said slavery, they didn't say that. They said have like a slavery Negro vibe to it. So I just watched them and I was just like, I know y'all singing the song, but y'all not actually listening to the words, which is so common. But a girl who actually was suffering with depression, when I was finished, she pulled me over and she said, Shurnelle, this song is about depression and mental illness. And I didn't even mention mental illness or anything in the song. I just described what that place is like. Once again, probably based on my psychology background, I was able to. I'm going to therapy and these kind of things for my own self. And I told her, I said, yeah, how you know? She was like, I felt it. She said, I listened to the words and I felt touched where I'm at right now. And then she explained to me, how she was, going through some dark stuff, suicidal thoughts, etc. And I was just like, God, this is exactly what I hoped for. Because at the end of the day, I no longer want to just reach people around me or in the church. I think the aim, just like your book is, it's a book where anybody could pick up and begin the process to purpose. And you don't particularly have to be, let's say, a Seventh-day Adventist or a Christian. but it will lead you and guide you there. I really believe that mission-wise, as a creator, that is my purpose. And it's no longer, I'm no longer too concerned about how people within the sphere of the church may feel or take this stuff. My biggest concern is like, if the Holy Spirit approve, and like if Jesus said yes on going forward with our project. Once I get that stamp of approval, and I have some really grounded people around me, my mom, my brother, you know, my grandmother, etc. Once like they tune in, and there have been songs that they're not gospel songs, but I've written, and my mom is like, this song is really powerful, you know, the message, like I really feel blessed. I know that, hey, you will be able to find light and you'll be able to be led to God if you stumble upon this whenever, without feeling like if I'm trying to shove him down your throat.
Exactly.
You're gonna welcome in. And I think that for me is the biggest purpose of my music and what I'm doing.
Exactly. That's wonderful. Exactly. And that's one of the things. And like you said, your psychological background, and I think that we have come to a point in existence, and as people of God, that we need to understand that we have to move beyond the physical space. And because we have to understand that it was written in the Bible when the devil came to tempt Christ 3 times. He tempted him 3 times, but on what level, and what are those 3 symbolic times what did he tempt him with? He tempted him, one, with bread. Christ said, thou shalt not live by bread alone. And we can look at that, like, where does bread go into? Well, if you eat bread, where does it go into? Your fruit, your belly. It fills up your belly. So that he tempted Christ on the physical level. And then he tempted Christ to tell Christ, I can give you all the power. Where does power exist? Power exists in the mind. So the second attempt was in the mind, and the third attempt was his willpower. He told Christ, jump and ask your Father to save you. He attacked his willpower. Willpower is basically your spiritual connection, your will to do what you can do beyond the mind and beyond the body. He attacked with all 3 of those levels. But we are in a space right now where a lot of us, we are very, very physical. We are very, and if not only physical, and we don't understand, but it's written. Sometimes I speak to certain persons, what I'm saying, but exactly what I'm saying is written in the book that you follow. That's the same book. It's written in the book. It's in the book. But it's in the book that it is said that we are not fighting with fleshly beings. We are fighting with a higher. We are fighting with, I don't know if you can help me, we are fighting with ideas. Principalities and all those things. That's where would principalities exist? On the level of the mind. So if you must save persons mental slavery, like Bob Marley said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. That's the hook. That's where we are. That's where we have to. Part of your journey is to make them put on the mind of Christ. That's the mind that shows that we are not deterministic. And there's a lot of ideologies and there's a lot of principalities that is found in the Pavlov psychology, the behaviors psychology, Pavlov and this other guy, that the classical conditioning and the other one, they were saying that human beings are basically deterministic. And what does that mean when you say human beings are deterministic? When you say human beings are deterministic, you're saying that human beings don't have free will. But a belief in God is saying that I have free will. I have the ability to choose. So if we don't understand that we have the ability, we have free will, but that's what God gave us the Holy Spirit for, to choose between stimulus and response. Like Viktor Frankl said, to choose between stimulus and response, that's where you find your responsibility. That's where we need to understand those things. And the level of, and some persons might not respect psychology because they don't know that psychology is working on them as we speak. The persons that are pushing the agenda in the world for globalization and all those things, what do you think they're using? Not psychology?
Would you believe I honestly, because I know some Christians they don't subscribe to psychology. And I'm just like, that is so crazy. It is literally being used on us. Just from the beginning of the entire thing, from the time it hit, and then there was Black Lives Matter, there was this, there was that. There were a few stuff that I had to sit back and be like, something with this scenario is not adding up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I said, look how they were able to wean everybody in, like just sheep, herd us in. Like, all right, everybody, get in line. You coming out of line, trouble, ticket, this, that, the other. This is what's going on now. You know, you are getting persecuted and all sorts of stuff if you are not being herded in with your mask on. And the reality is, it's going to be so easy for them to do it. I know we had a lot of wild expectations like Sunday law, shut down, chip in hand. But I'm like, they're already controlling us by media. Children, no. You could barely get a child to go outside and play. As a secondary school teacher, I always encourage my kids. I say, listen, try to go get some sunlight. When was the last time you saw the sun? Go get some sunlight. Go read a book. I said, y'all are creative. Sit down. And as an art teacher, I see it. My students are online all the time. But if I give them something to do, and I say, listen, sit down, take your time and conceptualize something to this team. I'm telling you, they don't have any ideas, And if they do, it's directly copywritten from Google. To the point where I will go on Google Photos, I will take a picture of their thing. Google will show, this belongs to so. It is on all these different sites. And I will just screenshot it and send it to them and be like, you failed. Because the world has already, so many things have already happened where they've shaped it and molded us psychologically. Just even the invention. I was watching a documentary on Netflix, I believe, had it up about, they were talking about the whole craze of email and social media and the people who were behind it.
Social dilemma,
right.
Yeah, I saw it.
Myself, hear these guys turn around to say it's one of the worst things they could have ever done. Because that's the reality. Just this weekend, I flew over to our Twin Island for a little staycation. And I told my brother, I got into the airport, everybody was like this. And for a period of time, I was watching something. I pulled my headphones out. I looked around, and it had like one old lady who was just like this, waiting on the plane. Everybody was. And I said, it's going to be so easy for them to say certain things. It's so easy for people to wake up in the morning and feel like they might be a tree. or some other random thing. Yeah. Because they unknowingly have been affected deeply psychologically by all these. Yeah, they're already controlling our behaviors. Students tell me when their parents pull away and they don't understand there are psychologists working behind all these different games, apps. They literally say, how do we make this addictive? Mm-hmm. And they bring in this who are able to break down and tell them what gets the human trapped. Yep. Students tell parents take their video game away, they flip out. Mm. And I told them, I said, you ever wonder why you get angry and you want to like lash your parents and resort to violence? And they literally was like, Miss, that's a good point to know. For real. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you all need to stop playing Fortnite or whatever this is you're playing.
It is a serious, and one of the things that I'm asking myself, will it get to a point where, and I think a lot on Caribbean identity, our identity as the Caribbean, will it get to a point that we are going to lose that altogether because of the advent of the global community? Are we going to, and one thing that we have to pay attention to, our identity is stuck to, it breeds our culture. And our culture is based on our belief. And our belief, we could go and see where our beliefs stem from. What do we believe as a culture? What do we believe that give us our identity? Our belief,
Yeah.
will it take that away from us? Will we just articulate our belief without acting on it? Is that what's happening? What is really happening? That's a lot of questions to ask.
It is. I'm looking forward to your next study, because that study is going to take years and years, and because it's really amazing to see how, and you know what? You know who's not surprised? The people who planned it. You know, that's what I'll say on that. But it's amazing to see how between a gap of like early 2000s to now, I had to say in that to dial up. He had to unplug the phone, connect to dial up for us to be able to go and do our little assignments online.
Yeah.
We went from that in the early 2000s to now everybody
on that space.
Yeah, everybody, even probably animals have technology that they use.
So,
you know, like everybody, you children, 3 years old, 1 year old, grabbing your phone and they're opening it.
Yeah.
And they go to YouTube. And I literally see it breaking down the system of society. And I said, I hope not to be that parent, but I know for a fact, homeschooling is something I'm definitely putting high on my list, because I'm saying the system, the same thing that you were saying, you know, the system is meant to, you know, bring about a certain level of discipline and structure for a child. But I'm not too sure if that's happening.
That's I think you could say we're not too sure whether or not that this is the main goal anymore. So if we are speculating on whether or not that's the main goal, we need to ask what is the main goal. So if we are asking what is the main goal, that's a level of distrust. So if there is a level of distrust that's already in our mind, can we take in the food that you're coming with? I think we're going to stay away from a lot of the things that you're coming with, because there is already a level of distrust based on rationalization.
It's interesting. There's so much I would not be able to say, but a lot, again, not everybody's observing this. I see parents, their children devices, and I'm like, you wonder why ADHD has risen over the years. You know, these children, they're getting affected by these screens in front of them all the time. Parents are literally letting screens grow their children up. And then we wonder, why is society crumbling in this type of way? And my hope, once again, as a creative, and I know you as a writer, is that in different ways, if we could shed light to, let's say, 500 people have access and connect with whatever we do, if 2 or 3 or 5 could walk away with their mindset changed, or with with a bit of an awakening happening when they interact with whatever content we put out, I think we would be doing our part.
And that's something that's where I am, and that's my aim, that's my goal, and you could say that's my purpose. When I look at what's happening, things naturally fall apart. Things fall apart naturally, but there is someone that's supposed to stay focused. That's someone that's supposed to stay aware. There is someone or some people that are not supposed to be quote unquote blind. It's because when things are falling apart, there needs to be engineers that's coming and fixing certain things, that's coming and say, hey guys, what are we doing? That's persons that are always aware of what is happening. And to be aware of what is happening, you need to be connected to the highest source. You need to know your source, you need to know your grounding, you need to be in the know, you need to be knowledgeable, you need to be conscious of a lot of things. And I think we can stay tonight and talk so much about a lot of things, but I didn't even ask you bulk of what I wanted to ask you, because the conversation kept going deeper and deeper, and I really appreciate it. So I'm going to ask you one last question. When you're interacting with your creative process, what's the hierarchy of importance? Is it the audience that you're writing to, your target audience? Is it your message, or is it you as an individual? What category will you give more attention to?
I give a lot of attention to message. Even so much so that there are certain songs, as I start the creative process of writing them and working on them, I know in my mind what visual I need to attach. So there are some songs that, because of how deep it goes, the song might be 10 hours if I had to really put everything up in the song, like really break it down. And it's something that I remember I was telling my brother, a lot of Christian artists, like there are few Christian artists who works are super intentional, like on the level that, let's say Beyonce, for example, as much as, her music is, glorifying whatever, the level of intention, like when you watch the documentaries, the amount of time storyboarding, putting together stuff, like creating a very, very, very deep message. It even on the shallowest of songs that in your mind you're like, this song that can't have deeper layers to it. In the music videos, you recognize she makes sure to put in whatever symbolism or whatever she needs it to be to make that message very clear. And I recognize Christians don't always put in that level of intention when they're doing their pieces. You get it more from the artist outside. So most times, even when we do visuals, music videos, it would be like in a church only. Or, it would just be like the usual, like for the Caribbean artists, you're on a beach and different things. And when I just started off, I allowed other people to direct the creative vision. And I recognized that works well for some people who just, like, they just write or they just perform what is written for them. But as I am a creative that dabbles in all aspects of it, from beginning to end, I think the last video I did was It Has No Sorrow. And I scripted the story because I wanted to make sure that people, yes, okay, the song itself is already deep, but I wanted the visual to connect to healing, because that is the place where the song came from. So my process is always about the message coming through. Whatever angle it's viewed from, I am always more message oriented. So even for some of the lighter songs, there's a song that has a very groovy kind of beat, and I know it's gonna sound like a more funky, soulful kind of retro vibe. But the script that I wrote behind it has to do with 4 of the 7 deadly sins. So I always want my stuff to show a deeper sense of meaning and message. So when you hear and then you see, you're like, oh, which is what happens more often with artists outside.
Yeah, and
so I've adapted.
You are so right, and that's something I always say to my friends. I'm saying, oh, but I'm really trying to understand it. So you're telling me that the persons outside there you are connected to God. You are God's chosen people, right? That's it. I understand that. I respect that. So you're saying God's chosen people supposed to be less creative, less artistic, not putting in the time, not being as influential as the devil's people. So you're telling me the devil's people are wiser, smarter, more intentional, and putting and have a higher work ethic. But
Wow.
I really don't understand it. I really,
Wow.
is it that God's people has been misrepresented? Is it that I'm genuinely trying to understand that? Is it that it's just that's just how God's people are, just shallow, small-minded, that's not creating anything, just following the status quo, just domesticated, just conditioned. That's all we're given. That's all we're given. But you said you found the creator of the universe. You said the creator of the universe is in you. You believe in the creator of the universe. You cry about the creator of the universe. But where is your representational? What are you manifesting? Where is your representational gift? What are you doing to show that? Like you said, Beyonce and all those people, they will say the devil inspiring them, but God inspiring you. God is stronger than the devil. So what? I'm lost when it comes to that question.
Me too. Would you believe? It's one of the things I looked around. I looked around, and when people ask, like, who Caribbean artists you aspire to be like, well, as I said, I respect all my fellow artists. Some of them are really good friends. I respect them. But I told them I really cannot look at anybody because from my perspective, it, you know, we walking on the beach, and my first video was like that. And it's so bad. I look back and I know people love running over, but it's something that irks me because I'm like, yes, this song is about, it's happy and it's meant to be a joyous song about God's love running over. But there was so much other ways. I left it up to the videographer to create and produce it. But after that, I said, China, you could never be a child of God and lack intention. Beyonce, Kendrick Lamar, all these other persons are seen as highly artistic. And Christians are some of the most artistic people, like blessed by God. We have that blessing, we're walking in the power, we like to sing. But when the time comes for us to actually execute something, it is so low budget, mediocre. Sometimes I'm like, and I know we don't get the level of support. And at this point in time, I no longer focus on that because as a old man told me, he wrote a book and he was telling me his experience about getting it sold because it's not like he did a big release. He said, God, if it's your will, it's your bill. Mm-hmm. I put my trust completely in God. And that's why I refuse to dumb down my ideas, small in my concepts, small in my visions, or whatever. I as much as friends or whoever may judge and say like, maybe I shouldn't, you like to be real extra and go big. I used to feel bad about it, but then I was just like, wait, God created me this way. When he gave 10 talents, he expected it to multiply to 20. And he did that on each level. So I am no longer going to approach things just like, oh, well, anyhow, anywho. Sometimes behind the scenes, I have the people revisiting the website, as I observe what they're doing outside. I'm like, no, we need this to step up to this level so that whoever comes, they need to be like, who is this? What this person believes? They need to be drawn into what's going on. Wow, okay, that's a different level. And I really believe that is what God wants. But so many of us have gotten lazy because we have gotten a small amount of hype from the people around us on the basics. Let's say like, okay, well, this is good enough. And God requires a high level of excellence. So that's my aim. And I know from how you are, that is your aim as well.
All right. I think we're going to, we can stop here. We can stop here tonight. I really enjoyed that conversation. And we could have another conversation sometime if you have I don't know if you will have your own sometime where you have your conversations, feel free to shout me out, and we can always have a conversation again. All right. I don't know if you want to say something to the viewers, something short, or if you want to sing a verse, it's you. Just to end. I don't know if you want to end on a high note.
I'll end with a song. I'll sing a little piece of a song that is not out yet.
All right.
It's the same song I was talking about with mental illness. So the name of the song is Here's Hope. Here is hope for the hopeless. Here is strength for the weak. It's a call for spirits broken. Don't you dare accept defeat. I know right now it seems like you're drowning, consumed by life and all the stress it brings. Depression seems to consume your spirit. Reach out to God and you will rise again. Here is hope. Ooh, here is hope. Ooh, he said, come unto me, and I'll give you all you need. Be a light unto your path, and the lamp unto your feet. God is hope. God is hope. God is hope. God is hope.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, and
Thanks.
yes, good night.
Bye, everyone.